Welcome to the Level Method Legion Chalk Talk podcast. This is Scott, your host, and today we're talking with my friend Morgan Henton. Morgan is an instructor for unmanned aerial technology at this local college. He is the owner of MHP Media Group, and this dude is a video aficionado. He started in 2000, so he's been doing video for 20 years. He officially started his business 4 years ago, MHP Media Group. And Morgan has been officially sucking at CrossFit since 2016. Now, before you get upset, those are his own words. But he does. The truth is he has had 2 open heart surgeries. Welcome to the show, Morgan. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Scott. And yes, those are my built-in excuses for coming in last. No matter the workout, I can always say, hey, I've got a heart issue. Lay off me.
Yeah, that's one. Did your doctor give you the clear to do CrossFit?
Absolutely. When I have like yearly checkups, I go to a doctor in St. Louis, Missouri, and I specifically asked them like, hey, I've been doing CrossFit more, and, is that okay? Is that a good thing to be doing? Should I, take it easy, or what's the kind of protocol here? And
Right.
he was, thrilled with it, and he's like, keep at it, keep going. And I asked him, is there a reason I should suck at it? I feel like these 40-year-old women beat me no matter what. He's like, nope, that's all on you. You should be fine. And yeah, you must just suck, I guess.
I don't think you should have asked that last question because now you know the truth.
Yeah.
I would give you a pass anyway. 2 open heart surgeries. What ages were you when you had those?
First one, I was 1988, I believe. And The last one was in 2009, right after I graduated college. So graduated college, got my diploma, and then like a week later, open heart surgery.
Okay.
So it's been a little bit.
And if you're doing CrossFit, you're obviously, your ticker is working really good. So.
Yeah, so far so good.
Okay. Right on. So we're going to talk about video today, and we're going to specifically dive into, basically how gym owners can get better at it, because I think that's something that you're really passionate about. I'll just kind of start with the background of, I was introduced to you by a friend of both of ours, Josh Price. And, the first thing that you did before I used your service, before I said I wanted to use your service, is you taught me a ton of skills on how to do videography that would equate to something worth editing, which is where I needed to start. So from the very start, I was very, very thankful to be introduced to you. Why do you care so much about helping other people film well?
Well, to go back to your intro, I've been filming things basically since the year 2000. Back in the day when I used to steal mom and dad's camcorder out of the closet, and go film my friends doing stupid things, then editing those things on my VCR in all reality. So I've really enjoyed video back to, middle school time frame. And even in high school, I did a lot of editing, did a lot of speech classes, kind of film classes in high school, wanted to go to college for that. And I live in Southern Illinois. We are like 3 hours from St. Louis, 3 hours from Indianapolis, 3 hours from Louisville, Kentucky, 3 hours from Springfield, Illinois. Like we're basically in the middle of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so, telling my dad, I'm like, hey, I want to go to a local community college for film and TV, transfer down to Southern Illinois University for, communications, TV stuff. And, as I always say, good old dream crusher dads, like how are you going to ever make money doing that here at home? Because, you can't move down, a town away. You've got to live down the street from your parents. That's what every parent thinks. And so I'm like, you know what, you're probably right. So I ended up going to school for ag business, getting a degree, getting into sales for seed sales for many years, and slowly got back into filming when I lived in Missouri actually for a few years, which is kind of funny because dad, wanted me to live at home, but then I ended up taking a seed sales job 3.5, 4 hours away. So that didn't really work for dad. But anyway, got back into filming with my buddy in Missouri, continue to get better and better. And then, in 2016, I ended up getting my first paid for gig. It was actually a secret engagement video. Like when I say secret, I was literally hiding in the bushes, camouflage from head to toe with my camera, filming this guy ask his girlfriend to marry him.
Wow.
So that's kind of what kicked off my business venture, I guess. And since then, we've been doing lots of weddings, lots of hospital stuff, lots of CrossFit gym videos with local CrossFits, as well as Two Brain. That's actually where I met Josh Price, and that's where me and Scott got to know each other. And
right.
I just the two brain kind of mentalities, help first. And that's just kind of, growing up in Boy Scouts and a lot of FFA, different organizations that were very community oriented. It kind of just been my, I guess, how I was raised as far as my passion on just helping people. And, if I can help people through that side of things, tied in with the video stuff, which, I've kind of created myself as being kind of the expert in my area anyway. So it's just kind of all fit together, really.
Yeah. So first of all, tell us all the different areas where you kind of specialize in filming. Because I mean, you started with an engagement, secret engagement video. So obviously you've done a lot of different things, but what are your niches?
Well, the thing that probably MHP Media Group does the most is hospital stuff and CrossFit stuff.
Okay.
So we do a lot of talking head type stuff, interviews with, like, say, doctors or client testimonials as far as the CrossFit thing goes. And so really a lot of those testimonial type service intros, that's kind of the major thing. We do a lot of weddings, but that's kind of like one of those things you kind of have to do, kind of keep the business going, keep the revenue coming. But, it's definitely that hospital CrossFit space.
So what we want to really kind of dig into is I want you to give us a bunch of free advice on how to film things correctly. And I feel completely open asking you that because I know that's what you do. It's the first thing you did with me is you're like, hey, before we start anything, here's where you need to start. So we are currently running a contest, and it's a video contest. And I believe that, and you may probably agree with this, is probably the most impactful thing a gym can do right now is create video content for their social media and for paid advertisements, because video seems to be really talking and telling a story. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm going to go to that last point you just made about how, that's video seen a huge uptick over the last several years as far as statistics for social media like Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, etc. And before we got on, I actually looked up some statistics that kind of just back that exact thing. I'm just going to read them to you. I read today that 45% people watch either Facebook or YouTube over an hour every week. So that's, almost 50% of the population watching at least an hour online. Over 500 million hours of YouTube are watched per day. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of people spending a lot of time strictly on YouTube. That's not, cable TV, Dish Network, DirecTV. That is straight YouTube. You mentioned a lot of online marketing. 87% of online marketers are using video to promote their, products or service. That basically right there is saying if you're not using video, the other guy is. So it's, if you're not using video, you're getting to be behind the times for sure. Also, the last one, a very interesting thing I read from a Facebook executive today was their expectations by the year 2021, which is not far off. Facebook will almost be 100% video. That means no text whatsoever. If you're posting an update, it's going to be a video update. And so right there shows you the importance of getting your gym ahead of the game before it's too late. Wow.
So that's pretty incredible. But I believe it. So
yeah.
Let's yeah, go ahead.
I'll start answering your original question on, just what should these gym owners do? I mean, the number one easiest thing for you guys to start doing video is pull in your pocket right now and pull out your smartphone. It's 2020. Everyone has an iPhone. A few people have Androids. We all have smartphones that take incredible video. You're talking probably even 4K, 60 frames per second video, which is way unnecessary. I mean, 1080p is absolutely good enough for the time being. Because just think, where are you watching video? People are sitting on the toilet watching Facebook, or watching YouTube. So they're not needing this ultra high definition 4K stuff. So no matter if you've got an iPhone 6S or greater, that's going to work just fine. I mean, if you're wanting to get more advanced, I've got some of my gear kind of sitting around me here. I mean, even kind of a lower end, this is a Canon 80D. It's a few years old. It's, if you want to jump into that line of things where you're wanting some like interchangeable lenses, I think this is a great start. Canon also has a line of what they call Rebels. I recommend, I think, the T6 to a lot of guys. They're asking me what they should do for video because it's going to be pretty user friendly, but yet you're going to have that capability to get a little bit more advanced as the time goes on. So that's if you're wanting to invest, you know, a little bit of money. The next easiest thing is tripods or some kind of stability. So what I've got here is an iPhone or a phone holder that just attaches to the tripod. Your phone slides right into it, clamps down. So now you're going to have a lot smoother, a lot more stable footage. And I don't know about you guys, but for me, when I'm watching someone, you know, walk around shaking their camera every which way, it about drives me crazy. Now with the vlog, you know, taking over YouTube and everything, people are kind of getting used to it, but you're going to add a huge level of professionalism if you can just stabilize that camera. Simply, you know, put it on a couple boxes in your gym, put it on the rig, put it on a desk, anything to kind of make it sit still and, you know, be stable is going to be huge in that professionalism. Something else easy. I mean, sound quality is a pretty big thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, again, a lot of our iPhones, Android phones have pretty good sound quality. Now, if you're filming yourself from like 20 feet away in your open gym with concrete walls and concrete floor, here's a little tidbit. It's going to sound awful. The closer you can get to that camera, the closer you can get to that audio source, the better the audio is going to be able to pick you up, and the less echo it's going to pick up as well. So that's, you know, a free piece of advice. If you're wanting to go a little bit paid for version, I've recommended some of the Rode wireless mics to Scott himself, actually, for his wife's workout videos. I think he's worked out well with that somewhat. Now, some of you iPhone users, I think actually Scott can talk about this. You know, he's actually went from the lav Rode mic actually back to like the AirPods with his wife's iPhone. And so, you know, that's not a free thing, but, you know, you probably already have the AirPods. And so, you know, why not use them for some quality audio as well? So also, you know, I've got different lav mics that you can just, you know, click on your chest, plug straight into your phone, straight into an audio recorder, and it's going to sound a ton better than, you know, just a straight camera audio 10, 15 feet away. So,
yeah, I've, my wife and I played a ton with audio, and I do recommend a lav unless it's someone like her, she's working out for 45 minutes to an hour filming. And so you can't have cables, but, you know, you talked about the Rode, wireless, but then also just I bought lav mics, wired lav mics, work for iPhones, work for DSL cameras, work for, you know, multiple ways. I bought the $17 Amazon special, and I bought the $100, probably more than $100 Rode lav mic. The Rode lav mic is smaller and has some really cool attachments and features, and just like kind of looks cooler. But sound quality has been very minimally different. So, I mean, even like a $15 lav mic is going to highly increase the sound quality in an interview situation.
exactly. I mean, that's exactly how I started too. I got a $13 mic off Amazon.
Yep.
You know, once I outgrew it and needed a little bit more professional, you know, being able to adjust sound and everything, you know, I upgraded. But that $13 mic, you know, made me a lot of dollars for being what it was, really. So,
yeah. And I think another thing that I tried was a shotgun mic that goes on top of an iPhone or a DSL camera. And I think those are good, but my impression, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, is you got to spend a little more for that to actually be something worth using.
exactly. And here, that was my next example. I've got that. Here's a Rode video mic that, like Scott said, a shotgun mic that would just sit right on top of the camera, plug right into the audio jack on your camera, and record audio to that. The biggest downfall with one of these is, well, you know, most part, unless you've got the mic like right here in front of the speaker's mouth, it's going to get a lot of echo, a lot of background noise, you know, people in the other room talking, doors shutting, things like that. So I typically only use these shotgun mics if I can actually get it like my mic here, you know, right under the subject's mouth, you know, very close to subjects as possible. That's not always real easy to do when you're filming with an iPhone, especially.
Right. Right. And I wanted to circle back around. You talked about the AirPods. We use AirPod Pros for my wife's videos. Now, I want to warn people to just don't run out and just do that, because we had them on and we're recording and we're like, well, this just doesn't sound good. Well, that's because on the iPhone, if you record from the camera in the iPhone, it has shut off the microphone access between the video and the AirPod. So you're actually just recording from the camera mic. And so you'll think it really sucks, but it's because it's not being used at all. And there are several apps, and they're, $15, $20, and they're video apps, and they're very advanced, but you can use your AirPod. You can literally select AirPod as your mic, and it works really well. The other end of that is you don't want to hand something that's been inside of your ear to a gym member and say, hey, do an interview for me. And, it's like cleaning the earwax off or whatever. So it's not, I just want to make sure people understand that's not your go-to unless you've really done the research, because it won't work the way you think it's going to work. It takes more than just plug and play. The lab mic is pretty much plug and play.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Especially if you're doing interviews with like clients or testimonies like that, you definitely don't want to hand your AirPod over them and stick it in their ear too. So that's a very good point.
Yeah. So the Rode wireless Go, I think it's worth pointing out. This is a brand new set. Morgan and I were just talking about this yesterday, but they're two little boxes, and one goes with the phone or your camera, and the other goes on the person. Actually has a built-in mic, or you can plug a lav mic into it, and very, very high quality. I have, just for everyone's knowledge, I have done the research, and I have bought like 8 different versions of these, the cheap China versions that look exactly the same. They just don't say Rode on them, and they do not work. No matter what the ratings say, I cannot get them to work without background noise. So it's worth spending almost $200 for this set.
Right. Yeah, right at 2, I think.
Yeah. So if you do want distance between you and the person that you're filming without a cord, there's really no better answer out there. So, and I think you would agree with that.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that $13 mic got me where I need to go, but it's not necessarily going to get me to that next level. So sometimes it is worth spending a few extra dollars up front to prevent the Scott syndrome of buying every level between, I guess.
Yeah, I'm surprised that Amazon because I didn't pay for any of them because I returned them all. I'm surprised Amazon didn't cut me off, but yeah, it wasted a lot of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So what other tips do you have for, let's just, the average gym owner, he or she hasn't really delved into video. Maybe they pulled their phone out a few times and just done a live or no editing. Like, what do they do? Like maybe they want to create a video. Our video contest is, the story of how Level Method has enhanced a member's life from their point of view. So like let's take somebody, they're like, hey, there's a lot of money at stake. I might as well throw my hat in. If nothing else, I have content to use to advertise my gym, which is probably the bigger end of the equation. Where do they start?
Well, just like that first overhead snatch, it only gets easier with more reps. So if you're just absolutely scared to death of being on camera, the best way to overcome that fear is pull that phone out there, do a quick, Facebook Live. Maybe if you got a gym owner or a gym members only page, just get on there. Those guys are going to be your easiest audience. They know your personality. They know that you're a great gym owner. They know you're there for them. So they're going to give you a lot of leeway. So if you stumbling and stuttering, it doesn't matter, because guess what? The next one you do, you're going to be a lot better. And then the next one, a lot better. No different than, squat snatch, a deadlift, a muscle up, whatever it is, the more reps, the easier it's going to get.
What kind of video should they, what should they be filming? Because I've seen some of your videos that you've done, and there's a video of someone talking, and then there's video of movements going on. And so kind of walk us through what you would do maybe you schedule 2 hours with a member that you want to highlight and get their story. Mm-hmm. What do you make sure you do?
Well, I think probably the most powerful video you can do for your gym is probably client testimonials. The client testimonials, find your avatar of that perfect gym member. For example, if you're a gym that, your number one client is a 40-year-old lawyer or female lawyer, let's say, then you need to get that 40-year-old female lawyer in front of a camera and tell her story, tell her why, why your gyms work, what's different about your gym, etc. And so if you can get that going, we talked about this on the Level Method call the other day about there's 5 different testimonial questions that I use from StoryBrand. If you guys aren't familiar with StoryBrand, I highly recommend you guys go get that book, read through that book. It's got a ton of great marketing information. And that's where I actually get these questions from. So I'll just kind of go through those questions. The first question I always ask my testimonial people is what was the problem you were having before you found us? So you're basically looking for, I sat on the couch, I was 40 pounds overweight, tired, couldn't play with my kids. You're wanting to find that emotional connection that that person had before, that hurt, before they started coming to your gym. The second one was, what did that frustration feel like as you're trying to solve that problem yourself? So again, I tried every fad diet, the slim fast diet, the drink olive juice diet, whatever it is. And, I just didn't see results. Then you go next to like, what made us at this particular gym, what made us different? You'd be like, well, the coaches were amazing. The group classes were awesome. The members were awesome, things like that. Finally, or next, there's kind of that aha moment they talk about, like, I got up one day and my pants that were tight for 6 months, I know I could button them easy. They started feeling loose, things like that. Because the more emotional connection you can get, the more likely that person is going to pull the trigger and walk through that door, send you that email, etc. And finally, you want them to kind of sum up their life now. So like, what is life like now that your problem is being solved? So again, you need to go back to that first question. You mentioned you're tired, you never felt good, you couldn't play with the kids. Now you want to say, hey, I've got so much energy, I'm actually able to play with my kids, I feel better about myself, etc. So those are like the 5 key points or 5 key questions that StoryBrand really points out that I try to get in all my testimony videos.
Yeah,
now you've got your questions. So now what do you do? Well, you want to sit down your client, you're going to go through those questions. You're going to, I'm going to say, okay, Scott, tell me what your problem was like before you came to my gym. And then you want Scott to repeat the question within his answer. So, Scott, do you understand that reference? If you can, give me your answer real quick.
You're asking me?
Yes, you, Scott.
So
what was life like before you came to my gym, Scott?
So life before I came to your gym was a life of being tired and really actually just disgusted that I couldn't take my shirt off around people. And,
perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect. So he started that off by, before I came to this gym, blank. So that's exactly what you want to do. Because that way in editing, you can cut out your own voice, or for example, my voice in that scenario, and it's going to be only your client talking. So you're going to go through all those questions, make sure they get nice, good answers. I like to usually do it twice, just because they kind of get their thoughts the first time through. And the second time, they're usually a little bit more to the point. They're not so spread out over a 3-minute period. And you can kind of direct them a little bit better the second time through as well.
Can I ask a question real quick?
Yep.
Mark your spot. But do you just do ongoing filming, or what kind of splicing do you do? What's best for editing? Is it just kind of a long set of filming or spots? Segments?
I prefer one long interview myself when I edit. Like if I have a client that sends me a 10-minute interview, I prefer that versus 5 2-minute clips.
Okay.
Just so I can, work on my timeline a little bit better. I can say, okay, I know this one was good here, so I'm going to slide it over here with this answer. And it's just, it's one big download versus lots of little one, lots less chances of losing something in between me and the client. And so I prefer just one steady shot all the way through.
Okay. So editing wise, that's pretty much the best way to do it.
For me, yeah, that's what I'd prefer anyway.
Okay. Right.
So once you get all your questions, kind of they've got them answered, they've got good responses, then you want to kind of remember what they said about those things. For example, if they said what makes our gym different, if they said, I think the coaches are amazing and I love the other people that I work out with, well, that's going to give you some amazing B-roll opportunities. Now, you're saying, what in the world is B-roll? So essentially our camera shot, our client talking to our camera, that's our A-roll. So that's our main footage. And the B-roll is things that aren't that main shot kind of overlaid on top of that in our timeline. So for example, the coaches are awesome. Other members are awesome. You're going to get that member interacting with the coach. Maybe that coach, giving the daily briefing up in front of everybody, or, just maybe that coach doing a slight correction with them, just showing that interaction between that coach and the client, because it ties right in with their words of the coaches were awesome, or, the coaches are experts for whatever reason. And also, members are awesome. We'll get them interacting with members, getting the high fives, getting the smiles, getting the, people clapping when the last person finishes, things like that. So those will all be good B-roll shots. Other B-roll shots would be, just a simple movements. Say the workout of the day is muscle ups and overhead squats. Those are terrible movements to put in a testimonial video, assuming you're wanting that 40-year-old female attorney client. Because if you're wanting that 40-year-old female client, you're probably wanting to do something much less intimidating. For example, like step ups on a box, or kettlebell swings, or jump rope. Something that a person sitting on the couch now can say, you know what, that's not that big a deal. I thought CrossFit was just ripped dudes like me and Scott doing tire flips or something.
Right.
Well, that's not funny, Scott. What are you doing?
Yeah,
That's not
you're right.
funny.
I was laughing at myself, not you.
So you want to put those, non-scary movements in that video, because you don't want to scare people away, unless you're wanting that jacked, dude like me and Scott to come in the gym. Then you want to show the muscle ups, the overhead squats, the huge deadlifts. So you got to play to the avatar as well. So you're going to get your interview, you're going to get those B-roll shots, and then you can go into your editing, no matter if that's yourself or, someone you hire, and then you're going to put that stuff together.
So you talk about like kind of highlighting your avatar or your the client that you want. How important is it to also, like in your B-roll, which now I finally understand what that means, is getting any type of avatar? Like, is it important to show maybe a little overweight people or older people or younger? Is it important to show the gamut of your clients, or do you want to just focus in on the one?
So I would say it's important to show, all your demographics you have in the gym, as well as that 40-year-old female client, because it really depends on what you want to. If you want to have laser-like focus on that 40-year-old attorney client, then great, show her and show her friends just like her. However, it's not going to really do you any disservice to show you the entire gym, because, it's going to be okay if you got a slightly heavier guy doing air squats in the background, or, some ripped guy doing muscle ups in the background as well, because it's going to show that your gym is both, all inclusive, all kinds of sizes, all kinds of genders, everything like that, as well as, not everyone that's watching this video is going to be a 40-year-old female attorney. So it's going to, have a little bit more of a shotgun effect as far as who you're reaching with that.
Right. But I think the message is whoever you have in your video is going to increase the likelihood of that person coming to you from that resource. So if you don't want the jacked, competitor, and you actually have one in your gym, you're probably trying to avoid that as a focal point for sure.
Yep, exactly. Yep,
okay.
Exactly.
It's awesome. So focus in on what kind of demographic you want to grow in, what your avatar is really. And if your avatar or your clients range from 40 to 70, then show them all if that's where you're willing to grow.
Yep, exactly.
So if somebody had maybe like a silver sneakers class, 60 plus, if they're wanting to grow that, should they do a video just for that? Should that be separate, or should they have them inclusive in their testimonials for other folks?
If you're wanting to grow your silver sneakers, I would probably focus more entirely on that demographic as a whole, because they probably do not care at the least about tire flips and overhead squats. They're going to care about the low impact movements of, sitting in the chair, doing light dumbbells, things like that. And that's probably not going to get a lot of 40-year-old female lawyers like our other example. So I would probably keep that as its own separate thing.
Plus you need couches, like flannel couches, and
yes, water jugs,
only
things like that. Yep. Al Bundy's living room. Yep.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't help it. All right. So this person or this new gym owner who's playing with video now has done their video shoots. Have we covered everything we need to cover in the video shoots?
Another thing that kind of comes to mind is, composition of a shot too. Now what that means is basically how you frame the shot. It's not the most vital thing, make sure you can hear them and see them is probably the most important thing. But if you're wanting to kind of take yourself to the next level, as far as, people actually stopping on that video, being entertained by that video and saying, man, that's a nice video, that's probably something, the next step you're going to work on. And so basically, for example, when I do a lot of my interviews, I kind of like to have them somewhat similar setup as I have on the video feed we have right now. I've got my rig in the background here. I've got some boxes over the corner, some wall balls, just something that's a little bit more entertaining in the back versus a blank wall. but yet it's not distracting enough, like members walking in and out of the door, behind me, or, just something that like just a super cluttered room. Like if you could like think of your office is probably not all nice and tidy. If it's just got papers everywhere, that's probably sending the wrong message as well. So that's just something to like walk around the gym and be like, you know what, that kind of looks like a nice shot. Get the rig in the back, get some wall balls, some rowers, and things like that. So I mean, like I said, that's probably the later stages of your filmmaking career, I guess you'd say. But that can also play an important role on keeping people from swiping up to the next thing that keeps their attention.
Okay. Yeah. And that's a really important thing. We want to keep those folks watching all the way through. Which brings me to my next question. When I watch video, a lot of times I'm in places where I don't want sound on. So do you encourage people to use closed captioning services, or what's your take on that?
I read a statistic today in my research that I think it was like 80%, I think, of Facebook videos are watched on mute. And so like you said, a lot of times you're in class, or in the bathroom or something where it's on mute. So closed captioning is probably not a bad idea. Now, there are paid for services. I think
Rev.
there's several. If you just Google, closed captioning services, there'll be a ton that come up. Now, is that something you probably want to spend another few dollars on a video? If you've already hired a videographer, if you've hired an editor, that's probably something that can be eliminated, because Facebook actually does a relatively good job on auto-generating captions for you. I've actually made a video like maybe a year or so ago on how that actually works. You upload the video, go to this setting, that setting, and then you can actually watch the closed captions pop up. Now, 95% of the time, they're probably going to need changed. So, it'll misspell people's name. It'll misspell your gym's name probably. It is absolutely awful on punctuation.
Yep.
So if that stuff's important for you, which I tend to be a perfectionist like that, the more professional I can make a video, I feel the more likely somebody's going to sit there and watch it. So I usually put those periods where they're supposed to be, put those commas. But also YouTube does the same thing. So most places where our videos are going to live are going to be Facebook or YouTube. Instagram, not so much. You only got a 60-second. You could throw in 60-second, small clip here and there. But generally, Facebook, YouTube is kind of our main focus now. So those both do a good job at kind of auto closed captioning. So those are definitely free choices that just take a little bit of time.
Yeah. So what I've learned is auto captioning in Facebook. The only way I've been able to make that happen is to do it through my page. I upload it in the page first. Now you might have a different resource for that, but then I share it out from there.
Mm-hmm.
I have found that if you want to save time on captioning, send it to Rev. Rev.com. You for a 5-minute video, you're going to spend $10. It's the reality of it. But the editing process and the accuracy of it is very, very detailed compared to Facebook's. You're watching it repeatedly, and you're adding your punctuation and you're changing words. And Rev, you can say alleviate slang, and it'll say gotta, and it'll change it to got to or have to. And so there's some things in there that will save you time. So it's a time versus like how much time you want to spend on it based on how much money you want to spend on it. I typically use the Facebook one. How good is the YouTube one? I've never used that.
Honestly, it's probably about the same as Facebook. I mean, a lot of these algorithms are okay, but they're continuing to get better. So you're still gonna have to spend some time putting in punctuation, change spelling, getting that slang out of there too. So
yeah, but I would encourage people to do that, to use closed captioning where necessary. I think it like you said, 80% of people are watching it silent on Facebook. So that's a pretty significant amount that you will lose. I only watch videos with captioning almost exclusively. So
yeah, here I got my note here. 85% on Facebook is no sound.
Okay. All right. Very cool. So we've got all the video we shot. I've heard you talk about the rule of thirds. How important is that? I mean, wouldn't that be like this with me?
Yes, exactly. I am violating that rule in my camera setup here, but yes, we're kind of in that third part of the frame. It's definitely not vital. If you watch most Hollywood movies, a lot of interviews on, your news networks, they'll use that rule of thirds. But people probably don't even know what's happening.
Right.
And so imagine if you're watching the video of this, you've got a vertical line here, in a vertical line about here.
All right.
And
So
then you also have
go into thirds vertically.
yep. So it would
Okay.
be left, center, middle, or left, center, right. And then same thing going up, bottom third, middle third. So you got a bottom, middle, top.
Okay.
And basically you'd put I like to put one of the interviewee's eye basically on that third. There you go. So about right here would be, if you're watching the video, would be about the rule of thirds for this camera angle. And also you want to make sure that if you're pointed to the side a little bit, you want to be talking to the open space versus over here where it looks like they're looking at a wall.
Yes, I've made that mistake. Very easy to make. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And it just takes time. You watch any Hollywood movie, they're going to have that rule of thirds. And now that you kind of know what it is, you kind of look for it, you'll see it a lot more. But yeah, it makes your videos look a lot more professional. But as far as like make or break, is it going to get me 2 new clients or not? Definitely not. It's going to make them look cleaner, look nicer, more entertaining.
Right.
But just something to work on with that other composition shots as well.
Okay. All right. So editing. Let's jump into that, unless we haven't covered everything for video.
That's one last thing on video. Lighting's another big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Just the simple rule is keep your light source in front of you. So if you've got like big gym doors at the gym, do not have those open behind you where the sunlight's, right behind your head. That's going to blow out the shot and you're going to be super dark. Like all our cameras nowadays are pretty well autofocus or auto exposure as far as iPhones and stuff like that. So you're going to be super dark. So it's trying to compensate for that super bright. So just remember lights out front and you'll be good to go. And, natural light, it's a free light. You don't have to pay anything for that. So use that as much as you can.
Okay, cool. All right. So editing. Now we've got a bunch of video and you're talking with people that, let's start from the very novice.
Gotcha. Well, as far as free sources, since most people are filming on their iPhone or have an iPhone or an iPad, iMovie is a free resource from Apple that it will get done what you need to get done. It'll not be amazing. It won't be perfect. It'll be cumbersome, but it can do it. As far as the iPhone and iPad apps, I've never used one actually on a Mac. I'm more of a PC guy. Mm-hmm. But I have done some editing videos, how to edit on iMovie with my iPad. And, they were good enough. But again, if you're just wanting to get something out there, by all means, use it. It's perfectly fine and it'll work. Another free resource is a editing software called DaVinci Resolve. It is very similar to Adobe's Premiere Pro, which is kind of a high-end video editing software. Adobe Premiere Pro is like $20 a month if you just use that one from Adobe. So again, if you use Rev, if you use a videographer, all these costs do add up. So yeah. I kind of understand that as well.
Right.
But yeah, DaVinci Resolve is going to be very intuitive. It's going to have a lot of features that you probably won't ever figure out what to do, which I'm right there with you. But that's definitely another free resource. But yeah, I personally use Premiere Pro. It's a lot of industry standard video editors use Premiere as well. So it took me quite a while to learn it. So YouTube is a great resource on just doing the basics of the editing, no matter if it's iMovie, DaVinci Resolve, or Premiere. So don't be afraid to Google, how do I do this in fill in the blank. So those are kind of the main ones I'd recommend anyway.
And I think that's just a matter of picking what you want to do and then getting reps in. And like you said, watching the free YouTube tutorials that are out there and stepping through. But in our mastermind call last week, we talked about the time to edit. And it's quite a span, but we're looking at, you depending on how detailed you want, it can take up to, an hour to 4 hours for a minute of editing for final content. And I think it's important to expose that it's not always a quick process.
So if I'm doing a testimonial, a good testimonial is probably going to take at least 2 hours for myself. And I'm pretty quick on the edits and everything. But if I get sent a 10-minute, interview, I'm probably going to watch that, at least 10 times. Because, that first part, they might have answered something really well. But in that first question, they might have tailored off and didn't quite answer as well as the second time they answered it. So I end up taking that second part, smashing it with the first part, and just kind of doing that for the whole thing through. So it's going to take quite a lot of time on just creating that story of the interview questions.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you've got a ton of clips of the B-roll. Now you're going to have to decide which B-roll to use, which one to leave on the cutting room floor, and how that fits in with your story as well. Now you got your interview questions, you got your B-roll. Now, what about music? A lot of times can kind of hide your cuts, hide your edits. Us editors will actually use some kind of background track to kind of make it a little bit more of a transition between answers.
Right.
So now you got a good song, you've got a good edit, got all that good flow. Now what about an intro with a logo? What about an exit? What about graphics? You know, so I mean, there's all kinds. You could work on these things for days. If your color is not exactly right, you could, you know, do some color correcting, some exposure. I mean, there's a million and one things you can do for these. And if you're not experienced in a lot of these programs, you know, that's just more time you're going to take. So I mean, I don't really have a good equation of how many minutes of video does it take me for editing, but yeah, I mean, you can expect to put some serious hours for a 2 or 3 minute testimonial for sure.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of the message is like, if you're going to take this on, plan to have that amount of time you're going to have to invest. That's probably the biggest part of the investment as far as time, frustration, and learning curve. My equation is I will try and I'll try and I'll try and I'll get super frustrated and then I'll send it to you. And so I think the lesson I have is I don't even mess with it anymore unless it's just a super simple, straight up video with closed captioning that I'm not doing any major editing on. But just to clarify, for those of you listening, you can send to your video to someone like Morgan. If not Morgan, there's other services out there to do that work for you, and you will save money in the terms of time because these guys have it dialed in. And this isn't a commercial for Morgan; it's a life lesson from Scott.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, just think if you're a coach at your gym still and you're doing PT, like how much do you charge per hour for PT? Now let's translate that into how many hours are you spending on that, say 60, 90-second testimonial? Does that take you 4 hours?
Right.
Well, if you're charging, let's say $100 an hour, that's $400. Could you have sent it to, you know, someone or had someone else do that for say $50, $100? So
Right.
just
Or
kind of,
even 200, you're still in advance.
yeah, exactly.
It's really important to do the math first and also be realistic on, unless you're just really good at computers, picking up new software. If you haven't done it before, haven't taken a course. I've taken courses years ago and things change really fast. And I'll do something in an app like iMovie and it'll update a month later and I have no clue what I'm doing again. And so, you know, I think the message I'm trying to get is like, just pay for someone to do it. It's very minimal compared to what your ROI will be on a very professional video.
Exactly.
Yeah. So also, those listeners aren't, we also recorded the mastermind that Morgan was on where there's even more detail on this. So you can always email scott@levelmethod.com if you're interested in getting access to that video or audio from the mastermind call, which was phenomenal. And what else do you have suggestions for before we close this down?
I mean, I think we covered a lot of stuff in here. I mean, the biggest thing is if you're not doing video, you're being left behind. The other gym down the street, they are probably doing it. And the longer you wait, the farther you're going to get behind. So again, just like when you learn that squat snatch, get that stinking phone out of your pocket, put it on a tripod, put it on the box, something, and just start talking to it. And it's going to get easier. It's going to get better from there.
Yeah, it is definitely the future of advertising, of getting your brand out there. Well, Morgan, I highly appreciate you for doing so much for me in the past and for really laying out some amazing steps and processes and tips for our listeners. And I thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Legion Chalk Talk with our guest, Morgan Henton. You can check out our show notes to find out how to connect with him and his MHP Media group if you do want to use his services, which I highly suggest. And if you enjoyed this, learn something from it, or want to share it, there's a little button on the screen somewhere that says subscribe, whether you're listening to the podcast or watching the video. We suggest you do that because we always have really great information for business owners, gym owners to increase the revenue in their gym, increase the proficiency in their business practices, and make their lives easier. And we just appreciate every single one of you that listens to this. Have an amazing day.